Intro to Scientific Notation. Let's take a decimal number and multiply it by 10. Okay, 2.83 times 10. What do? How do we figure out the answer? What we do is we take the decimal place, we move it to the right because it's going to get larger, the value is going to get larger, times 10. In this case, we just move it one spot because there's 1 0 after the 1. If we multiply 100, we're going to move it 2 spots. By 1,000, 3 spots. Okay, so the answer here is going to be 28.3. 3.43 times 100. Let's do the same thing. There are 2 zeros after the 1 in 100. So we're going to make this 1, 2. We're going to move the decimal 1, 2 spots. Okay, so the solution here is 343. All right, so however many zeros there are, that's how many times we're going to move, how many positions we're going to move the decimal to figure out what the answer is. Now, it may not be written as 10 or 100. It might be written as a power. Okay, so let's say we have 0.2357, and we're going to multiply that by 10 to the power of 3. Okay, well, 10 to the power of 3 is 1,000, right? It's 10 times itself, 3 times it's 1,000. So there are 3 zeros in this case after the 1. So that 3 zeros means that we're going to take this decimal place and move it 1, 2, 3 positions to the right. Okay, so the number is going to get larger by a factor of 1,000. Here it got larger by a factor of 100. Here it got larger by a factor of 10. So that's going to leave us with an answer of 235.7. Okay, so that's multiplying by 10. We can also divide by 10. All right, so let's say we're going to take a value 283.4, and we're going to divide that by 10. Okay, well, in this case, it's going to get smaller by a factor of 10. That means that the decimal place is going to move this way. The number is going to get smaller, and we move it to the left however many times, however many zeros there are after the 1. So if it's 100, we're going to move it over 2 spots. If it's 1,000, we're going to move it over 3 spots. In this case, we have 283.4 divided by 10. So we're going to move the decimal over 1 position, and the answer is going to be 28.34. Okay, and in much the same way, if we had, say, 7.38, and we divide that by 100. Okay, there's 2 zeros, right? We're going to divide it by 100. We're going to make it smaller by a factor of 100. We're going to take the decimal and move it over 1, 2 spots because there's 1, 2 zeros. All right, in this case, it seems that we have nothing here, right? Well, there's always zeros. You know, we don't write them, of course, like over here, the number 283.4. I mean, if you wanted to put 3 zeros over there just for fun, you could. But we would never say them, we would never see them, right? And so those zeros are always there. And now we're actually going to use that to figure out what the solution is. So 7.38 divided by 100, we move the decimal over 2 spots, right? So the decimal will end up right there, right there. So the answer is going to be 0.073.8. Okay, so it gets smaller by a factor of 100. So we can also do the same thing with exponents. We can divide these values by powers. Okay, we could do the same question, right? If we had 7.38 divided by 10 to the power of 2, this is the same question, all right? And so as you can see, 10 to the power of 2 is 100, and 100 has 2 zeros. Well, the exponent, when you have a base of 10, just tells you how many zeros are after the 1. So really, the exponent just tells you how many positions you move over to the left when you're dividing. Or it tells you how many positions you move to the right when you're multiplying. Okay, so here, we're actually going to get the same answer. And let's try a different one. Let's say we have 93.57, and we're going to divide that by 10 to the power of 4. Okay, so 10 to the power of 4, there's a 4 there. That means we're going to take the decimal place, move it to the left, because we're dividing over 4 spots. 1, 2, 3, 4 spots. Okay, so like I said, we can have as many zeros as we want over here. We just don't normally see them or say them. So what is the answer going to be? 0 point, and we have 0.09357. Right, we took the decimal that was right here. Okay, it was here, and we moved it over 1, 2, 3, 4 positions for it to be now here, right? So we got smaller by a factor of 10 to the power of 4. We got smaller by a factor of 10,000. Okay, let's talk about, first of all, if we want to divide by a fraction, we're just going to do this because we're getting into dividing by negative exponents. If we divide by a fraction, if you remember this, say 6 divided by 3/4, what does that mean, or what do we do? Well, in math, we multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, so the reciprocal just means if it's a fraction, we just flip it around, right? So 6 divided by 3/4 is the same thing as 6 times 4/3. See, we just flipped this fraction. We just flipped the fraction, right? Put the 4 on top, the 3 on the bottom. Okay, so that's what we do when we're dividing by a fraction. So let's look at an example now with base 10. So let's say we have 4.35, and we're going to multiply that by 10 to the power of -2. Okay, so times 10 to the power of -2. Okay, so when we have a base and a power that's negative, remember, just over here as an aside, 10 to the power of -2, right? What is that equal to? That's equal to 1 over 10 squared, right? Those are the same thing. Okay, so 4.35 times 10 to the power of -2, right, is the same thing as 4.35 times 1 over 10 squared. Okay? And so this is 4.35 times 1 on the numerator, 4.35, right? And on the denominator, it's 10 squared, right? We're still just rewriting the same question, just in a different way. So this now means 4.35 divided by 10 squared. So that's why we did this example over here. When we're saying, hey, when we divide by a fraction, we're actually saying multiply by the reciprocal. Where here we have multiply by a fraction, we're going the other way, divide by the reciprocal, right? This is 10 squared, this is 1 over 10 squared, right? These are the reciprocal of each other, okay? So 4.35 divided by 10 squared. Well, we already know how to do that. We already know how to figure this out. 4.35 divided by 10 squared, right? It means it gets smaller, and the digits move to the left by 2 spots, just like that. So the answer is going to be 0.0435. See, the decimal was right there, and we moved it over 1, 2 positions to here. So the answer is 0.0435. Okay? So when we multiply a decimal by a base 10 number with a negative exponent, okay, we're actually moving to the left. Whereas when we multiply, let's say we had a positive exponent, right? 4.35 times 10 to the power of +2, right? This one's positive. This one is negative, okay? It gets larger, right? So it moves to the right 2 positions, okay? So when we multiply by base 10 with a negative exponent, the value gets smaller. When we multiply by base 10 with a positive exponent, the number gets larger. So this question right here would actually equal 435.